All right, it looks like our waiting room is empty, so we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us for part 6 of our Educate and Act series. This one is titled Civic Participation for International Students and Scholars. This series is led by the Commons, the Center for Service Learning, and the Emily Taylor Center for Women and Gender Equity, and features opportunities to share how to engage in democracy in the United States, offering information and resources about civic participation. My name is Kate Kemper. I'm the Assistant Director in the Center for Service Learning. I'm one of the planners of this event, and today we're going to have some KU staff and student panelists that are going to be sharing about their own experiences, opportunities, and challenges as global Jayhawks as it relates to civic engagement, so participation in community political action in the United States. Civic engagement itself is a very broad topic. I think of it as anything that you're doing in your community to try and make your community better or different than it currently is. Civic engagement for some people is a much more narrow topic, thinking about specifically political action and advocacy, but in my opinion, it's a little bit more broad than that. This session today is going to be moderated by Tiffany Learned in International Support Services. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Tiffany, and you can get us started.
Fantastic, Kate. Thank you so much. So my name is Tiffany Learned. My pronouns are she and hers. As Kate said, I live in International Support Services, and I'm the Programs and First Year Experience Coordinator for International Support Services. So much of my job is really bridge building. That's what I do, is connecting students to opportunities that they want to be connected to, so that if you're an international student, that's kind of how you know me, is that I connect you to opportunities. And but I also serve a lot of domestic students who want to get engaged internationally on our campus, and hopefully I provide space for them to do that. So I don't want to talk too much about limitations of getting involved, because I think the opportunities far outweigh the limitations. But I do want to give you a few things to keep in mind as we go through today's conversation and we talk about opportunities that are open to you. There are a few things that I want you to keep in mind, particularly if you are an international student. So if you're an international student or scholar, you know that you are probably here on one of many visas. Could be most likely an F1 or a J1. That's what most of our students and scholars are here on. And the only limitation is that you don't want to do anything that jeopardizes that status and jeopardizes your studies at KU, because that is a student and scholar visa category. That is primarily how you are in the United States. And so just keeping that in mind, that you really don't want to do anything that would hinder the completion of your studies here in the US, because then that can also hinder or affect your legal status while here in the US. So the biggest question that I get, particularly last summer, students ask, can I protest in the US? Do I have free speech? Do I have constitutional rights and protections while I'm here in the US? The answer is yes, you do. Yes, you are welcome to participate in those things. The only thing that I do want to point out is that while you are legally allowed to share your voice in that way, the law, in the United States, not unlike many places all over the world, the law can be applied unevenly. And so that's where, you kind of have to be a little bit more careful than a US citizen or a domestic student or scholar when you're participating in those types of things. But we want you to have the full depth and breadth of experience while you're here in the United States. And the other thing that I want to make sure that everybody knows is that you are here. This is your community and this is your campus. It's extremely important that your voices are heard and represented on our campus and in our community and in our national community as well. So that's where I want to encourage you to get involved. Some questions that you might want to ask yourself as we talk about different opportunities is that students and scholars are here on a variety of programs. And so one of the first questions you have to ask yourself about a particular opportunity is if that opportunity is paid. Um, if it is paid, that might be great. If it's paid and it's on campus, and your sponsor gives you the okay, and your degree program gives you the okay, that's great. But if it's a paid opportunity that's off campus, usually that's something that we might need to talk about. Um, just in terms of your legal status here in the United States. And speaking of sponsored students, technically, most F1 and J1 folks are allowed to work on campus. But if you're a sponsored student, if you came through a sponsoring organization, um, they may have a restriction that you are not allowed to either work on campus, or, they want to restrict the number of volunteer hours that you're participating in, because they really want you to be focused on those studies. So that's kind of, you know, a little bit of questions there. And what you can do is, um, if you're an international student or scholar and you want to be thinking about these questions, just make an appointment with our office or drop in. We're happy to discuss those things with you, and help you to keep all of those things in mind. And I will say that, I've been at KU now for 9 years. And when a student has wanted to pursue an opportunity, we've never come up against a hard no in terms of like a sponsoring organization. Working off campus can be a different story. But for example, I had a student several years ago who was a sponsored student here, was a sponsored exchange student, and really wanted to have the opportunity to volunteer in the US, in a really deep and meaningful way. And we did have to do some negotiation with his sponsoring agency just to make sure that he could manage his time and keep his classwork in focus. But ultimately, they said yes, right? So even though they did have a restriction in place that students were not allowed to um, be volunteering while they were in the US on their program, we negotiated with them, and were able to support that student. Um, the other thing that you do have to consider is whether you might be engaging in an activity that is restricted in your home country. So, in the United States, you absolutely do have freedom of speech and you do have constitutional protections. However, we certainly don't have any control over your home country. And there have been very few and rare instances where students have gotten into some trouble at home for activities that they participated in the United States. And unfortunately, we do have a wide range of expertise within our office, but we actually can't know the legal system and restrictions of every country out there in the world. So that's something that you'll have to think about on your own as you want to engage. And then finally, I'll just say that, International Support Services is here to support you. We do have an expert team of immigration advisors who can advise you, but we are not legal professionals. We are not lawyers. So that's something, as much as we wish we are not. Occasionally we can point you in the direction of a lawyer should you need one, but we just we don't have that expertise within our office. And sometimes, depending on the situation, we are also not USCIS. And so if you were to say you were to engage in a protest and you did end up getting arrested and charges were filed and that kind of thing, as much as we can advise you in that situation, it's not something that we can really help you. It's not something that we can really help you with. So that's something I always try to tell students, to keep in mind, is that we are here to advise you and support you, but we do have limits to our expertise, even though we do think you are all phenomenal people. And like I said, we do want you to have the full depth and breadth of participation while you're here in the US. So, um, yeah, so that's a little bit about international support services and just some things to keep in mind. We do have several panelists with us here today. I think we're ready at this point to have our panelists go ahead and introduce themselves and get started. Get started talking. Let's see here. I'm just gonna go. Kate, is it okay if I just if we just go along the screen and just start that way? Okay. So I'm super excited to introduce our first panelist because um, she's actually worked for us in ISS and done some phenomenal work as a student support. So Tamara Dobra, if you want to start and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tamara Dobra Anarajik Thomas. I'm a junior here at KU with a major in microbiology and a minor in business, and I'm from Nigeria. Um, I am a president of Lead Up presently, and I also work for the Center for Community Health and Development. Yeah, overview experience. My civic engagement journey here at KU has been a long one. Not really long, but like it's been a journey. Anyways, coming here from like freshman year, when I first came here, I didn't really know anything about like civic engagement or like, participating in community service. And coming here like alone with no family in the US, I was like very lost. But I came in through the academic accelerator program. So that really helped me to have like a smooth transition into school. And we had classes like UNIV 101 and UNIV 104, where like they taught us about like how to get engaged in like community service and like civic engagement and more about school. And I also got involved in the global awareness program. So that helped me to be able to, get into community service and civic engagement here in the US. Yeah. But limitations, I feel like limitations were mostly about like information because there's differences between here and back home. So when you come here, you're like kind of confused on like, what exactly counts as community service sometimes. Is this okay for me to do? But I feel like we had help in that by like with the ISS and with Tiffany and with like our leaders in classes to help us like answer those questions about like, is this community service? Is this allowed in the US? Is this okay? So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But yeah, thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm just gonna go across on my screen, Navia.
Hi, I'm Navya. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am an international student and a freshman at KU from India. My major is molecular, cellular, and developmental biology on the pre-medicine track. I am also the director of volunteering and service for Honors Community Advocates and a student ambassador at the Center for Sexuality and Gender Diversity. In regards of civic engagement, my experience has been pretty unique. I came to the United States last year in fall at a really critical time when the elections were going on. And I had strong views about some of those topics, as well as about the social injustice issues going on at that time and right now. But I had no way to channel my thoughts on those issues. I know a lot of people use social media, but there have been instances in the past where students have been deported because someone they followed posted something that was against the political beliefs in the United States. So I refrained from doing something that's going to endanger my visa status. But I do my best to be involved in the community in Lawrence in the US by being a part of organizations and volunteering for organizations that address homelessness, food insecurity, and social injustice issues in Lawrence as well as in the US. And through my executive and leadership positions, I try to advertise volunteering opportunities so members of my organizations can make a positive impact on the community as well. And I hope to be continually involved in the civic and community life in the United States. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, Jawad.
Hi, hi everyone. My name is Jawad Obaid, and I'm the IT project manager at the Center for Community Health and Development at KU. Um, I've been in the United States for about 20 years plus right now. I came here when I was 18 as a student. I went to KU and I did my undergraduate. And then I did my master's degree, and I've been working all over the place since then, some of which was at KU for a few years. And then I came back to KU um, uh, back again in 2019. My civic engagement has been also unique, as everybody who's wasn't born and raised in the United States. Um, but basically, it involved a lot of volunteering and being as politically involved as I can with my status at the time. That changed right now, so it's different. But I always try to reach out to the people around me, contacting my local representatives and the people who present us, whether in the state or in Washington, and just be really, really involved and try to educate and pass the knowledge of everybody around me. Um, that has been a big part. The other part is just, doing simple things and volunteering everywhere, everywhere I can. KU has a lot of great programs, especially the ISS. It is one of the, I mean, I haven't dealt with them recently, but whenever I was an undergrad and a graduate student, um, they've been just phenomenal in terms of knowing the rules, knowing the laws, giving recommendations, giving direction. So it's definitely highly recommended. So that's just a brief thing about me.
Thank you. We're still excellent, I promise.
Oh, I know. I didn't mean it that way.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
It only gets better. It's only gets better.
Exactly. Yes. Fantastic. All right, great. Priya.
Hello, my name is Priya Vanchy, and I am a doctoral candidate at the Department of Applied Behavioral Sciences. I'm also a TA there. I'm a graduate teaching assistant, and I'm also a research assistant at the Center for Community Health and Development. So I studied public health and I work in community health and development. So basically the nature of my work and my study in community-based participatory research puts me right at the epicenter of the action, like right in the community. So I've had a very interesting experience with community service and civic engagement. So it all started off theoretically, like understanding what is meant by service learning and how it improves scholarship and how can a scholar contribute to the community and understanding all those different things. So I think that has been very unique about my experience. And with respect to my personal experience, most of it has been limited to opportunities at KU. So I volunteered a little bit at there is an organization called the Professionals for Social Justice. So I did some volunteering with them. I have helped host a conference on social justice issues. So it has been mostly scholarly. Most of my participation has been scholarly, like sharing my knowledge and skills, and also with the courses that I teach or I TA. I've helped students in the course participate in the community by like brokering communication with community sites and helping those students partner or work at the community sites. So that has been my service learning experience. In terms of limitations, really those some of those gray areas that Navya talked about. um, so there was a lot of political action, and political consciousness coming up last year. I wasn't so involved in the political. I did not have my political views and ideology really started developing, but then last year was really the point where I had like very strong opinions. But it was a gray area, and I did not really want to, do anything rash. So um, that is something that I'm still working on in terms of how to um, meaningfully express and to not in a way that doesn't hurt other people's um, feelings and their opinions. So I think that is the part that I wasn't sure if my status as an international student would put me at a disadvantage. So I think that has been my experience.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Priya. And Monica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Mendes, and I'm gonna share a little bit. I came to the United States back in 1998, so I have been here for a little while. In the main reason that I moved to the United States, it was to learn English. So if there's something that I cannot say correctly, please forgive me. I moved back in 1998, and I always look for opportunities to keep me engaged in what my goal was, to be more English proficient in this country. I was not back then I didn't have any legal status or any interest on staying in this country, but I am still here. In 2010, I was hired by the Center for Community Health and Development. Before it was the KU work group. And I have been serving as a community mobilizer for the last 11 years. And personally, I feel like the civic engagement piece that I was able to be part of it, it helped me it helped me get better informed about issues in the community, about different events and even political views. And until today, I feel like the system in the United States is hard to understand, but easy to work with. So every day is a learning opportunity. And as a community mobilizer, I feel that uh, my role in the community, I am based in Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas. I guess since day number one, all of my work done, it has been in this community. And all of the experiences through that many years, it had moved me to take some action when it comes to civic engagement. I have been able to gain or learn new skills, and part of my commitment is to make community and residents being also engaged and as part of their responsibilities as citizens, as people living in this country. We have some responsibilities, and that's part of kind of like the commitment that I pursue with residents, and it has a big emphasis on education. And I'm also working with youth. I'm blessed to be working with youth, and that's one of the main passion. And I'm just really surprised to see everyone else in the panel and all of the experience that they have. And again, when I mentioned the civic engagement opportunities, I think you mentioned civic engagement. It can be defined very broad, and we all have some experience in volunteering. That's how everyone starts. Once you become more aware because of your volunteer opportunities, you're able to have a voice, participate in many organizations and many things that you're interested to put your heart and passion to work with. And that's all about me.
Yeah, I love that. So that's actually a fantastic segue to my first question. So talking about volunteering and where did you start? How did you find out about, your first opportunity? Where are you finding information about opportunities? How did you find something that you wanted to participate in? What was that process like? So really, I'll open it up to the panel. Anybody can answer, but tell us where you started and how you first connected to opportunities.
I would like to make a suggestion. Again, many of us who come from other countries, we don't. In my case, being from Mexico, we don't have that kind of a volunteer. You have to work to live. You have to have a job and get money. So you don't have that connection. You don't come with that connection. And probably there is not an understanding what volunteerism means. So I personally will recommend that you guys look for things that you're interested. If you, I started my volunteering. It came to me. I started attending classes in a community. It's called Matty Rose. I started attending classes for personal growth, and after the first year, the second year, they offered me to volunteer, to be a facilitator. And I you do that because you like it and you're not expecting to get any payment or any in return, but that's how I engage in volunteering. You have to look for things that you're interested and give your time. And if any of you are like super busy, just think about once a year, I want to volunteer for this cause because I care about this issue or this topic. Let's say that in my case, it was something that it came to me, but now when I try to really get youth and others in volunteering, I think the people in charge of those organizations or those who had the need of volunteers, they need to do more than just put a flyer and say, we need people to help in a community garden. We have to build that social cohesion where we learn the trust from others. And again, you'll find out who is either interested on that topic to volunteer with, or they just have that bonding relation with the organization or anything in particular.
Okay, anyone else? Where did you start? Monica, I love that you mentioned that it was a couple of years that you were building that relationship and getting comfortable within that organization. You know, it wasn't immediate. You built that relationship over time because it was something that you were interested in and passionate about. So, yeah. Others, feel free to share.
Just like,
for me, oh, go ahead, please.
sorry, just like Monica said, I was volunteering even before I came to the United States. Even when I was in high school, I was a volunteer teacher at an organization to teach underprivileged children in India. And even before I came here in the fall, I found out the page volunteer.ku.edu, where I started looking for volunteering opportunities for future. And I even emailed Kate even before the fall semester started to find out opportunities. And then I ended up finding organizations that I felt passionate about. Like over the winter break, I volunteered for Kansas Beats the Virus along with Priya, and I was also a volunteer for Alternative Breaks.
I was just gonna say my experience starts through a friends that I made in the first few years in college. Excuse me. I lived in the dorms, and so there is a lot of like activities, and there is a lot of like bulletin boards and flyers that you can look at. I know the situation is different right now because everything is done through social media, so I think that's a big part of it. In my days, we didn't have smartphones, and Twitter didn't exist then. So we didn't know about a lot of these opportunities. It was more like the word of mouth, or if it was like through a flyer and in the dorm, or like, you know, in one of the buildings at KU. So that's how I was introduced to it. And then I think the more you do it, the more the concept kind of builds in your mind, and the importance of it, and you get more and more into it. So that was my personal experience.
My personal experience had to do with classes again. For my classes, you had to have like community service and like have proof, like to get grades and stuff. So I think that's why I started going for community service. And from there, I kind of like had an interest in like wanting to do more. So that's when I started branching out and, you know, Googling stuff and looking for people online that needed community service close to me. But yeah.
I would also like to add like many departments and many people who host events, they have listservs, and sometimes you get like those group emails which talks about an event, and then you register for the event and just attend the event. And then when you attend the event, you get an opportunity to network with the people there. So that is another way to hear of opportunities within KU or sometimes even outside of KU. And I know ISS hosts these. I mean, at least they used to before COVID-19, where people used to get together to talk about, you know, their culture and about their home country, different languages. So I think those networking events really give us an opportunity to discuss activities in the community.
Yes, absolutely. I will give us a plug. We always have we always have opportunities for you. I have opportunities coming out of my ears. So yeah, anytime you want to join. Um, so one question that I want to ask you, because I know we have some students on here who are maybe new to KU and maybe they are still, it's still early March. We've only been in classes for a month and maybe they've been online. If somebody hasn't, made a lot of friends or made a lot of connections, what's your advice for somebody to get involved when maybe they have to go to an event where they're not going to know anyone at that event? They want to get involved. How can somebody get started? What kind of fears did you have um, before getting involved, and how did you overcome them?
I'll go. For me, it was I came here when I was 18, and I always wanted to come to the United States. So um, I couldn't wait till I step a foot in the country, and it was it- so for me it was just I had this image of people that I really I was very I approached everybody living in the dorms or like at the cafeteria or at KU. I just had the mindset of, you just approach somebody and talk to them, and whether you're in your classes or whether you're talking to your professor or your TA or your other people at the dorm. It I highly recommend for students to follow the same approach. You can always approach people and ask and try to get information and ask for help. I think that was, at least in my experience, was very, very helpful. So I encourage everybody to just um, talk to their peers and their surrounding, and there's a lot of friendly faces around there. So definitely take advantage of that. So.
Yeah, just like you just said, what I did when I first came was, first of all, I just had like an open mindset. Like I just tried to like release all expectations, or like yeah, just release expectations basically. Like don't expect everybody to be my best friend kind of thing. Like if I just have like an acquaintance in like one or more like settings, that's fine for me. And also finding like interests. Like for example, I'm pre-med, so I find people in my classes that want to study together. Those could be my friends. I'm also religious, so people like in church could also be my friends. So just like people that have same interest as me, so we have something to actually talk about, and we're not like staring awkwardly at each other. So yeah, that's what helped me.
I can go next. For people who are like on campus in person, there are so many events organized every week, like especially at the union, like the Center for Sexuality and Gender Diversity. We just had like a queer coffee hour today, so you could just come, take coffee, eat food, and get to know other people. And there are a lot of other events like that by SUA and other organizations. And for people who are virtual and are maybe not in the United States right now, they can join so many clubs that they're passionate about and make friends socially on virtually on Zoom. So there are a lot of opportunities if someone tries to reach out.
Yeah, I think it starts at orientation where you meet people from other majors, from doing other graduate studies, not just within your department. So I think your friendships start at that point. And then I also think that many countries have an association for students like within the country, like an Indian Students Association, for example. So taking part, being a member of that organization and getting to know the people from your country, start somewhere and then maybe diversify to other people. And also because we enroll in a lot of courses from a lot of other departments, you might make friends there. So I think these are some of the avenues for networking and making friends.
I'm not sure if I'm the last one from the panelists, but I'm not at KU, sadly, and I always apply this. Just ask, and I tell everyone, I tell the kids in our program, if you want to go ask for milk price and you don't have a cell phone to search that up, you don't go and ask to the auto repair store. You go to the grocery store and ask about the price. So just asking will get you to places. And not being shy, asking and being able to say no or yes, it's really two important things to have with us as a tool.
Yes, great advice. What I'm hearing from all of you is that you're going to have to be at least a little bit outgoing, at
Absolutely.
least a little bit.
And with
Um,
that being said, I just wanted to mention, I know that times are different right now with COVID, so it's might not be as easy to approach somebody or start a conversation, because we have to be first socially distant and we have to be wearing our masks and all of that stuff. So that makes it a little bit difficult. The other thing is, I know being an international student or coming from overseas, a lot of students will gravitate towards people from their same culture or people who speak the same language, which I totally understand, but also don't box yourself into that. Try to approach everybody. I think that would be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I obviously I see it all the time where students connect about, students have a common interest, and even though one is from South Korea and one is from Saudi Arabia, but they happen to both love Japanese anime, right? And they connect that way. So yes, yeah, whew, being outgoing. And I will add too, if you are an international student or scholar and there's an event that you want to go to participate in, email me. Email me and say, Tiffany, I really want to go to this. And I may know another student that I think would also be interested in going to that event. And I have also been known, you can drag me along to any event as well. This has literally never happened. I have been making offers for a decade to attend events with students, and usually just saying that I will go with them is enough to encourage them to be outgoing, to go find an actual peer to go with them. So, all right, I want to switch a little bit and get, a little bit more serious, but particularly with the events of the past year, and maybe particularly with the events of the past 4 years, how has U.S. political and civic life affected your day-to-day life? Affected your time here? Maybe affected your mental health? What has that been like for you?
I could go. In the past year with the whole election stuff, and there was this travel ban for my country specifically. Yeah, that kind of affected me because it was kind of like, okay, if I decide to go home, can I come back? Like, will I be able to see my parents again? Will I be able to continue having school here? So that gave me some kind of like, not anxiety, yeah, kind of like anxiety, like with school stuff. Like I couldn't really focus for some time because I was worried about like, seeing my family. I was supposed to go home last year, but COVID happened and Christmas and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of makes you anxious sometimes when you think of like the policies and stuff. But yeah.
The past year was pretty stressful for me because like I was building up to the moment when I go to the US all my uh, senior year of high school. But as soon as I got accepted, COVID started and all the travel restrictions and the visa restrictions were in place. So even till August, when I was supposed to come here when classes were going to start, the US embassies in India were closed. And I was pretty stressed out that all my peers are going to be in their in-person classes and make friends, and I'm going to be in a different country and not able to use that experience. But finally, it opened and I was able to come here, but it was still pretty stressful seeing all the changes that were taking place.
Um, I don't think we have enough time to talk about all of that, but I'll try my best. um, I think for me, it took a huge mental toll on me because the policies themselves didn't necessarily affect me, but it affected us all as a collective conscience, and as as a country and as a world and society. So I wasn't necessarily affected by the actual policies, but the attitude, the shift of attitude of people in the last 4 years under the Trump administration has been completely, is just I don't know what the right word for it, but it's very unfortunate and it's very disturbing. So I think that's the most significant thing, beside the policies who literally affected a lot of people on this call and on might be listening as well. Um, just the shift of attitude. It is really it was really damaging, and it's going to take a lot of repairing to recover from it. So that has been my experience. So, and I think we can, as I said before, I mean, we can notice that in policies, and people can see that as a tangible effect. But at the same time, even if the policy doesn't necessarily affect a certain somebody who thinks they understand the policy because of the perception of what the environment did can really affect somebody's life, or can get somebody's visa rejected, or can get somebody's status revoked. So it's a lot more than a policy. It's how the policy is perceived, and how are we as a society and a collective conscience are responding to it, or even worse, not responding to it. So.
I think to me, this awareness as an international student, it heightened when there was this travel ban restricting people from Muslim countries from coming into the US. I think that's when this distinction that international students are different from other students really, that consciousness really heightened for me. I was already a student at that time. And then last year, there was a proposed increase for fee for international students. It didn't go through, but there was a fee. And then following that, more recently, there was this proposal again to change the law to limit the time that students in the US could study, like the 2 years, I think, for 2 years or the 4 years. So all those were very stressful for me because I was nearing graduation. Like I was thinking of graduation starting from last fall, and then all these changes, and also there has been a constant, constant um, doubt whether international students would be able to continue with an OPT, whether there would be a STEM extension, all these things. These are very specific concerns for international students. It's not like you just get done with your course requirements, graduate and find a job. So everything has to be timed. You have to think about, all the changes that could take place from the time you decide to graduate and then the time you actually graduate. And then more than that, more than anything else, it has been the unprecedented delays in processing of all these legal documents, legal documentation, like processing of visas, processing of transfers of, from a student status to an OPT. I think all that has been very stressful, like keeping all that in mind, making sure that you're not out of status. I think these have been very stressful for me, more stressful in the last 1 year.
So during this time, what gave you a sense of agency, or a sense of a sense of control, maybe over your own destiny? Has the past 4 years, has the past year in particular, has that pushed you forward in your civic engagement, or in your engagement in general? I think Priya and Navia, maybe you were talking about that you had volunteered with was it the Keep KU Safe, the COVID, I don't know, I'm getting it wrong, but anyway, you understand my question. What's given you a sense of agency? Has this encouraged your participation? Was it discouraging?
I'll go. For me, it definitely encouraged me. I've been always passionate about all these issues and issues of equality, and again, my experience has been a little bit more unique. I've always thought about the United States as my final destiny. to come to. So people ask me where you're from, and I tell them I'm from the United States. I lived most of my life here after I was 18. So um, so I didn't, for most of the time, I didn't necessarily feel an international student per se, because I was very, very engaged in the culture and every day. But definitely the last 4 years and under the Trump administration, I felt a a lot of urgency to eh, urge people to do the right thing, urge people to be involved, urge people to, you know, not rant about things necessarily, but, turn that rant into an action whenever they can, obviously. Um, and just, try to live as, as a good example for everybody. But it has been extremely, extremely hard, but it did, it it gave me the agency in a sense of doing things and thinking twice before doing anything, because people are watching and people have a preconceived notions about people with an accent, people with a different color, with all that stuff. So you have to be a lot more careful in that regard. um so that was very difficult, but it made me more aware of how other people perceive things, and how other minorities um it, are perceived, and are treated, and especially people in the Black community. So
All right. Anyone else? Okay, so that was a little bit serious, and I actually want to um, dial it back a little bit, because the truth is that by getting engaged and getting involved, there's a lot of fun to be had, and there's a lot of joy. So there's, we can definitely move the needle forward while making friends and having a fantastic time. So I want to hear from each one of you about a moment of joy that you have experienced by getting involved. And I guess it doesn't have to be a moment, it could be more than a moment. Maybe it was even a full day, but um, what has brought you joy from getting involved and getting engaged?
I could go. The big events that KU hosts, I really like it. Yeah. So last year we had a mini big event during COVID, and that was like one of the only events that we had in person. So I was really excited to go to see people in person. Of course, we wore a mask and everything. But yeah, we went to this woman's house. We helped her to plant stuff. And that was the first time I ever planted or did gardening and stuff. That was very exciting. And she was very nice. And we had she wanted to give us food, and all those stuff. She was very nice. So I feel like just having to meet new people and experience new things like gardening or stuff like that is very exciting. So yeah.
for me, it, it was an event that I've done like a long time ago with the Humane Society, with dogs and kittens and puppies, and these are always fun. So definitely check that out. It always makes you feel good. So
I can go next. Um, so we do this summer program where we invite you to participate in a academic preparedness program. It's called Lead Up, and Tamara is also part of Lead Up. And we have been doing that for the last many years. And to me, it's a lot of fun to meet directly with the youth and really talk to them about your experience. And when they look up to you as a role model, and some of those youth have also, gone on to start college. So I think that gives me a lot of satisfaction, and I really love doing that program every year. So
I'll go next. I'm not sure what gives me satisfaction. Me personally, really seeing the youth being engaged in the community. I feel like it's harder to switch adults to think differently, but really working with the youth towards what is the right thing to do. I am part of different events through the year. I mean, I feel joy just by seeing the families that come to help to do a cleanup. They come like the full family with their kids, seeing that all the family comes out, and it doesn't matter if the parents are doing it to teach their kids, or if I'm not sure what it is, but just seeing them that they're doing something for what's theirs on their part. I am blessed to have many volunteers on events. You'll see events in the community with similar events, the same type of events in different areas in this community. And most of the volunteers are either KU students that need to do community service, or elderly. And when I started organizing I'm a more new addition to organizing those kind of events. And the first day I saw a lot of elderly carrying heavy stuff. I'm like, oh no. I switched my thinking about send your kids over and stopping people and telling them this is for your community. Either if you cannot come, send your kids, or uh, we cannot let it's nice the elderly help, but it's not nice that there is many other available hands in the community to do those kind of things. I always have about 15 people volunteering, and even during COVID, which is kind of like, okay, I don't need that many volunteers, we need to keep it like 2-3 people per table. But it's definitely really exciting that it hasn't never last year I didn't saw any day where I was alone or with no volunteers. It's always too many volunteers, and I feel like that's one of the things that get me really excited. And 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 with the KU students that participate in a program for it's a youth violence prevention program, having those kids to also be more interested on doing something else besides just attending school, getting them engaged in uh, being active in their community, even when they didn't want to go and do community garden and complain, they just seeing them have fun. Just those kind of moments are really joyful to me.
For me, it was the mini big event too last fall. I was a committee member for the big event and I helped organize the event. We worked all day to send volunteers to different sites, and I felt really fulfilled after doing that.
So hopefully COVID is going to end, right? Right? It is going to end. What are you looking forward to in the future, or what engagement goals do you have for maybe, the next year or for the coming years? What are you looking forward to?
Okay. Before COVID started, I used to volunteer at LMH, the hospital, and it was really nice. But once COVID started, I couldn't go anymore because guidelines and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that coming back. So yeah, it's one of the things I'm looking forward to.
I'm really looking forward to volunteering in the medical setting as well, because I didn't have the chance till now because of COVID, but I'm really excited to do it after everything is over.
I can promise you they are going to be very excited to have you. They're going to be super excited to be able to have volunteers again. Well, we are just about at time to wrap up, but I certainly, if there's any last remarks that somebody wants to share, or comments that you would like to share, some words of encouragement, I would love to hear them.
For me, I'd encourage anybody and everybody to be as involved as they can with anything they can. There is no act that is too small to make a difference. We are all you know, everything is a collection of smaller parts. So just do your part and, be mindful, be aware. Um, and, everybody can make a small difference. And, whether you volunteer with the Humane Societies with puppies, or whether you go and, if your status allows you in the future, to drive people to the polls to go vote. I mean, it's in each part of the spectrum. Just, be involved, be aware, engage, talk to people, share your knowledge, share your experience, share your culture, educate people, and don't be discouraged. I know it's tough times, with COVID, with the political environment, with the constant injustice, especially racial injustice going on. It's easy to get discouraged, but every part counts. So.
Well, it's definitely, I couldn't see the students' faces, but definitely there are people that really enjoys learning from other cultures and learning from just your experience. Being able to share that with others is a learning experience as well. And that's part of your volunteer time without knowing, because you're making others a service by us being able to learn about other countries.
I would like to add to what Monica said. I think service has really helped, overcome many of the biases and prejudices that I have had, and also to understand what the U.S. society is, the fabric of the U.S. society. I think because to really live here and experience and understand what racism is about is different from what you might have read about racism or just studied in history. So I think going out, meeting people, and really from different walks of life, from different socioeconomic conditions, really I think helps reduce bias and think more openly or be more broad-minded. I think that has been my greatest learning through service.
I know that the work that went into being somebody who could serve on a panel and talk about getting engaged, hours and hours and hours and years of preparation went into this 1 hour of being able to share your expertise with us. So that is absolutely amazing. And I promise I won't cry, but I might cry a little bit. But it's just when folks come to my country and then engage in making it a better place for everyone, it's okay. I said I wasn't going to cry, right? So thank you for being here in my community. That is, it's an unbelievable gift to me and to everyone. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. We're so glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Kate has some information perhaps on resources that will be shared with folks afterwards.
Yes, yeah. So thank you. And I totally echo everything that Tiffany just said. Thank you so much for being here today. We hope that our panelists and our participants will consider joining us for our next Educate and Act event on April 13th. That's part 7 of our series, and it's about climate policy and action. So I'm going to throw a link to that to register in the chat, as well as a link to the Emily Taylor Center's YouTube channel, which holds all of our past Educate and Act recordings, and we'll hold this one once we get it set up and sent over there. And then the last link that I'm sharing is the CSL Civic Engagement Hub. This is something that we started in the fall, and we're continually adding resources to that hub. And hopefully once we move our website over to the new content management system, which is a whole other story, we'll have a really great page about international students and scholars and specific resources for Global Jayhawk. So again, if there are resources that you want to share with us, please let me know. We'll send out a follow-up email to everybody who registered with some additional resources and some more follow-up information. But thank you so much. Here are the links in the chat, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Kate, can I quickly plug something?
Yes.
Yes, do it.
So next week on Tuesday at 6 p.m., the Emily Taylor Center is partnering with the Center for Russian, East Asian, and Eurasian Studies, as well as the International Women's Association, which Tiffany is the advisor for. And we're hosting Kristen Godsey, and she'll be talking about the socialist roots of International Women's Day. And so if you go to emilytaylorcenter.edu, ku.edu, or if you check us out on Facebook, you can find the information about that program. So I hope some of our international community will join us for that event. And when you register, you're entered into a raffle and have the chance to win one of 5 free books by our speaker called Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism. So yeah, so I hope some folks will be there. And I also just want to echo everybody's thanks, both to the organizers and to our amazing panel. I really enjoyed listening to you all talk about your experiences. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye all.
Thank you.